From 2000 to 2002, Ricky Rudd had one of his best stretches in his entire NASCAR career. After shutting down his Cup team in 1999, he went over to drive for Robert Yates Racing for the next 3 seasons. With the help of crew chief Fatback McSwain, they were able to put together back-to-back top 5 points finishes, and got Ricky Rudd back in victory lane in the process. But while the relationship started off so strong, it ended in the most toxic way possible. This is when Ricky Rudd got punched.
And he's got a problem. He's got another
Ricky
Rudd hard into the outside wall.
No.
Our leader.
Here comes the land rush back to the caution flag.
Ricky goes around. Oh yeah, he rubbed him. He sure did.
The stats say that Ricky Rudd had his worst season for Robert Yates Racing in 2002. While a top 10 points finish is nothing to be embarrassed about, it pales in comparison to his previous 2 seasons. Robert Yates Racing as a whole took a step back in 2002, but it wasn't like they were terrible. Dale Jarrett ended up finishing 9th in points with a win at Michigan. They were still somewhat competitive, but just not as competitive as they were last year. But the difference between Jarrett and Rudd's 2002 season is that throughout some part of it, Ricky Rudd knew that this would be his last with them. Rudd was being forced out for what Robert Yates felt was an upstart in Elliott Sadler. Rudd felt this was unjustified, as by the summertime, he was solidly in the top 10 in points. There were multiple races where he led a bunch of laps but couldn't close the deal. But at Sonoma in the summertime, he had a little luck go his way.
It's over. What happened?
It blew up. I heard him say it was blowing up.
Jerry Nadeau, the Atlanta winner in 2000.
Great job here, guys. Great job.
For a long time considered one of NASCAR's most accomplished road racers.
Of course, he pretty much has promised us within a couple of weeks that an announcement will be made about his future, what he's going to do and with this 28 car.
The way his year has gone, just trust me. Let's get him back around here.
For the first time since Watkins Glen 1990, Ricky Rudd's going to be a road course winner. Ricky Rudd and the Haviland Taurus win the Dodge Save-Mart 350.
This would be his 23rd career Cup Series win, entering his mid-40s. But little did anyone know at the time that this would be his last. For the rest of 2002, the tension that stemmed from Rudd's impending departure continued to get worse. And honestly, you can't blame Rudd for being testy. He had given Yates nearly 3 full years of faithful service, outperforming Dale Jarrett much of the time. In July of that season, Rudd first had a verbal altercation with crew chief Fatback McSwain, and it wasn't even over on-track performance. It was allegedly over Rudd not attending a team party honoring the crew chief. But the following incident that took place at Richmond in the fall of 2002 made this one of the most toxic departures in NASCAR history. He entered the 26th race of the season, 8th in points, and still with a mathematical chance of winning the championship. And you have to remember, Rudd was a pre-race favorite based on his performance before he racked out of the lead in the spring race. While he didn't lead any laps this time around, he was still able to put together a solid performance. But it wasn't without some struggles, as Rudd failed to do something earlier in the week.
Bill? Hey, Alan, if those lights go out, that could be an advantage for Ricky Rudd. For some reason, he forgot this was a night race. He normally runs a different mirror in a night race. The mirror in the car here is reflecting the inside lights right into his eyes. It's especially troublesome on the back stretch, not quite the problem on the front stretch. But the less lights, the better it is for Rudd. But these guys run different mirrors at night races because of the way it reflects the light. Ricky just didn't change his.
Ricky running along in 4th spot right now, so it's
unbelievable when you get that lucky when you forget something and it works in your favor.
Yeah.
In the end, Rudd was on pace to finish 3rd but ran out of gas in the final laps. he wound up finishing 7th. While Matt Kenseth and another Ford team in Roush Racing stole the headlines initially with a win, another Ford team was about to steal the headlines throughout the week for all the wrong reasons.
We have some of the news items from this week that we want to bring you up to date on. First of all, Ricky Rudd was fined $5,000 after a post-race water tossing competition last Saturday night at Richmond. The incident involving Rudd and Yates engine employee Larry Lackey, and it may have been triggered from some radio conversation that went like this.
Stewart, he's 6th, and Newman, he's 5th, and Johnson, he's right behind you.
Yeah, boy, what's happening, I'm having to drive in on them. They've got probably, it looks like 15, 20 points lower gear than I've got. They just rocket off the corner. Like, you can't believe how they rocket off the corner for the first, part of that run. You guys want to run with that group we were chasing a while ago, you got to go to work in the motor room a little bit.
Now, after the race, Rudd will be in the white t-shirt with his back to the camera. He was on the receiving end of a punch from Larry Lackey. Rudd recovered and with pinpoint accuracy heaved a water bottle and struck Lackey in the forehead. Lackey was fined $10,000 by NASCAR and resigned from Robert Yates Racing. Both Lackey and Rudd were placed on probation by NASCAR until December 31st.
Well, Marty, let me correct you 1 minute. You called that a fight. I guess if I ran into that guy's fist with my eye, I guess you would call that a fight, but I don't think that's a fair fight. It was a sucker punch, and came out of the blue. It'd be like you sitting here right now and hit me with this microphone.
I wouldn't do that.
I hope not. I've had enough of that.
Have you had any discussions with Mr. Lackey as to what set it off? Was it radio traffic earlier in the night or an article earlier in the week?
You know, Marty, I don't really know how to tell you. It's not like we had any warning. I was having a casual conversation with this guy, and it just all of a sudden out of the blue, he sucker punches me. So, I don't know. You got a lot of people work on these race teams. You got a lot of good people. That motor shop, a good example. There's a lot of good people that work in that motor shop. There's probably 100 of them, and out of 100 people, you've got a cross-section of society. In cross-section of society, you got some people that are violent, you got some people that are calm, and that's what we've got as a cross-section of society, and no warning whatsoever that was coming. Going into Richmond, we had a failure, I guess, a couple of weeks earlier that knocked us back to nearly 400 points behind, and after Richmond, we came out of there 248 behind, so that's a very reachable goal, especially this year, the way no one seems like they want to win this championship. So, we've got to perform good. We've got to get back to the level this team is capable of performing week in and week out. I was real encouraged. That's what I saw at Richmond last week. We ran very well. We just keep that up every week and stay out of wrecks and things and stay out of fist, and we'll be okay.
Ricky Rudd is leaving that team at the end of this season. He will go to the 21 car and drive for the Wood brothers. Elliott Sadler will replace Rudd at Robert Yates Racing. There have been some exchanges between that team, between driver and between crew and vice versa, ever since it was announced that Elliott Sadler was coming to Robert Yates Racing. They're in a very unique situation. They have a driver that can win in the 28 car, and they still have a chance, as Marty and Ricky talked about, to win the Winston Cup Championship. The strange thing is, if Ricky Rudd does win a race, and there are 10 of them left to go with that team, it's going to surprise a lot of people.
Larry Lackey had just completely sucker punched Rudd in the eye during a discussion over engines, and Rudd, after collecting himself, threw a water bottle and hit Lackey in the face. But while this incident is totally unusual and considered hilarious to some, what I find the most funniest personally is that NASCAR called both of their behavior detrimental to stock car racing and fined both of them, even though Rudd was the one that got sucker punched. I'm pretty sure if most people were in the same situation, they would try and punch him right back. Instead, Rudd decided to just throw a water bottle at his face. So Rudd, who has a black eye in case you didn't notice, was absolutely appalled over this penalty, calling it the most absurd thing I ever heard. Really, the whole confrontation had stemmed from published comments Rudd had made weeks before the Richmond race, as he contended he was not getting engines equivalent to those of Dale Jarrett's.
But wait! There's more!
He even went as far as accusing Robert Yates Racing of stockpiling engines and parts for Sadler's arrival. With those accusations being made public, I totally understand team members feeling some type of way, but that doesn't give you the right to sucker punch somebody, especially in the workplace. And I know what some of y'all are also thinking. What ended up happening to Larry Lackey? He ended up getting another job with Petty Enterprises, actually, the same team that had gotten snake bitten and led to Ricky Rudd's final career win. Once again proving that connections in racing are absolutely everything. Ricky Rudd's 2002 season looks decent in the stat book, but when you look more into it, it actually turns out to be one of the most toxic team departures in NASCAR history. And once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.